her. And she's not just nervous. It's not nervousness. It's anxiety, it's phobia, it's significant. Maybe it's of small places or elevators, I don't know. But you know that the suffering that she's doing, she would only do for this young man who she has her hands on. The guy to my right is up against me, and the tattoos start on the tips of his fingers. And they go underneath the cuff of his borrowed shirt and out of the collar and onto his bald head where there's a giant Astros star. And behind me, I feel the hot breath of the person who's standing behind me, and I smell the alcohol in it. And I wonder if it's from what he drank last night or this morning. And a colleague of mine in the elevator says, "Hey, Murph, what's up?" And we talk like there's nobody there with us. "Yeah, you know, it's just another day in paradise, man." So I make it to Judge Hardass's court, and the first thing I do is look for my client. And she's not there. Judge Hardass takes the bench. "Mary Smith, Your Honor, George Murphy, I'm on that case. Miss Smith's not here. There was a really long line outside the building this morning. There was a big accident on 59. Would the court consider waiting a bit for her?" State moves for bond forfeiture. Call her name at the door 3 times. I sink back down into my chair, and the lawyer next to me leans over with a wry smile on his face, and he whispers in my ear. He whispers, "Another day in paradise, huh, Murph?" Yeah, another day in paradise. I want to pause that movie. We'll come back to it. But I would say 15 or so years ago, I've been a lawyer 27 years. 15 or so years ago, I had become another day in paradise guy. That had become me. I was complaining about my job at the office. I complained about my job at the courthouse. I complained about my job at home. I became less happy. I had a sense of self-pity that I felt justified in having. And it made me not the greatest guy to be around, and that's not important to you, but what it also did, and it's the most embarrassing thing I'll tell you today. It made me less tolerant of my clients. It made me less empathetic of them. It made it more difficult for me to tell their story. It made me disconnected from the coolness, the awesomeness of what we do. I'd forgotten about it. And ultimately, it made me less effective as a lawyer. And that's very difficult to admit. My hunch is that I am not the only person in the history of Harris County Courthouse to have that story. My hunch is that some of you, I'm not going to ask you if it's you, but some of you know somebody who can associate themselves with that feeling that I had. So my mission today is to help you help that person out of that rut of negativity and self-pity, and instead to focus on positivity and gratefulness. My hope today is that we all, at least for a little while, reconnect and re-plug into the absolute thrill of what we do and the honor that it is to do it. And I hope ultimately that I'm able to help you help others do better work. I'm not going to preach to you. This is not going to be Tony Robbins. Nobody's going to walk over fire here. I'm just going to tell you my story and what I went through and some of the things that I did, and I hope you find it helpful. The first thing that I did was do a really serious and honest self-evaluation. Why was it that I was talking the way I was talking? Why was it that I was feeling the way I was feeling? A habit that I've gotten into, and it's been great, is that over time, I'll be walking around or something, and I'll just feel a sense of, not dread, but there's something wrong, and maybe it lasts with me the whole morning, and finally I'll just stop. I'll literally stop. Okay, now what is it that's making me feel that way? Maybe I was, did something poorly, or maybe I missed an opportunity to help somebody, or whatever it is. But once you identify what it is that's causing that darkness, that feeling of dread, then it's easier to deal with it. So what I want to do with you is go over the things that I found that were leading me and have led others to have this negative dialogue, if nothing else, about what we do for a living. So what we're going to do is have a pity party. Pity parties, this is the group part of the speech. I want you to speak up if you have any thoughts. Pity parties aren't such a bad thing. They're only a bad thing if they go on for a long time. All right, ours is going to be 10 minutes at the max, and it's going to be focused on trying to bring to our conscious level what it is about our job that is difficult and makes us feel this way. And here's what I learned. There are a lot of really good reasons that we get to be negative about what we do. I'm going to go over some. Y'all speak out if you'd like. One thing is, what we do is really hard. It's not easy, what we do. You got to learn a lot. You've got to be creative. You've got to be trained. You've got to stay up on the law. You have to be persuasive in what you write and in what you say. It's not only hard intellectually, it's physically difficult. Trials in particular are grueling. So the mere fact that what we do is difficult lends itself to this negative talk. I'll tell you another thing about what we do that's not easy. We lose. I may be the very first speaker in the history of CLEs to admit that I lost a case. But I lose. It's part of what we do. And you can say, and I do, and it makes me feel just a tiny bit better. What do you mean? We don't really lose. We get in there, we fight the fight, we defend the Constitution, we give a guy his day in court and a fair trial. Okay, that sounds good, but it's not that way for me. I don't feel like that. What I feel like is it's not State of Texas versus Mary Smith. It's me versus the prosecutor. It's a very personal thing, and I'm wrong about this. I shouldn't feel this way, but I do. I feel like the jury is passing on me often. And when I lose, I think that the jury is saying something bad about me. It's personal. When we lose, we haven't lived up to our clients' expectations. That's hard. When we lose, sometimes there's a bigger picture, like you feel as though there was some level of corruption that occurred in that case, and you weren't able to stop it. It's going to continue, and it's going to continue because you lost. Losing is hard, and that's part of what we do. We have difficult clients. a big percentage of the people that we represent, and I found this particularly true when I was at the Federal Public Defender, have mental health issues. And it's not their fault, obviously, but it makes it difficult to represent them. It's not easy. Some of the people who represent are just knuckleheads, and that makes it hard to represent them. You know, they're not easy people to deal with. There are a couple of emotions that go hand in hand for me that wear on me, and they're fear and doubt. There's a lot of fear in my daily life. I'm afraid of the prosecutor. You know, I'm afraid of the judge. I'm afraid of the jury. I have fear when I go into the courtroom. And I always have doubt that I'm good enough to do for the people I represent what they deserve. I always have doubt about that. When I lose a case, one of the first things I think about is that Dick DeGuerin would have won the case. You know? I doubt myself all the time. And I always wonder whether a different lawyer, would have done better than I did. We're underappreciated. Criminal defense lawyers don't get a lot of attaboys and attagirls. It's not a function of what we do. And in fact, and sometimes it's the exact opposite. It's ridicule. Not only are people aren't saying, man, attaboy, way to defend the Constitution, but they're being critical of us. And that weighs on you. How many of you have had this experience at a cocktail party? Hey, Murph, what do you do? I'm a criminal defense lawyer. Oh, you put the bad guys away? No, I don't put the bad guys away. What I do is I represent people who are accused of being bad guys. And then the question is the same all the time. How can you represent somebody who's guilty, who you know is guilty, right? Well, here's how I explain it. I'll say, you know, I kind of view myself as a law enforcement officer. I think that's what I do. You know, I enforce certain laws that I bet you can agree with. For example, I bet you don't want the police just to run into your house and start rummaging around your sock drawer just because they want to. Well, no, I don't want that. Well, see, that's a law that I enforce. Oh, okay. I make sure that the police just don't beat somebody up and get a confession out of them. That's good, right? Yeah, that's good. So I'm a law enforcement officer. Oh, yeah. How do you represent people you know are guilty? Like, man, I need a drink, I think. So not a lot of attaboys in our profession. And I'll tell you one that maybe weighs on me more than any other. And our good friends in the public defender's office who do such wonderful work don't have to worry about this, thank goodness. And that is business. Business. I don't know how I have kept the lights on over all these years and put kids in college. I don't know how it happened. It's really hard, and it really weighs on me. And our business has changed so much over the last 25 years, getting business, and I'm so in awe of the younger lawyers who are out in front and who are on the internet and doing that, who are running their practices very well and doing very great legal work, but who also understand that they're running a small business. And that's something that I never really figured out. So business is, part of it is tough. Here's another part that I think is maybe one of the most important factors that lead to this negative dialogue we have at the courthouse. And that is, it's become the culture of our courthouse. It's the habit of most people, or many people. It's the dominant dialogue. It's what people say. So older lawyers, more experienced lawyers, the lawyers that when we were young lawyers, looked up to, when we heard them saying negative things about what we do, well, you think, well, that's the way it is. That's what we're supposed to do. That's how we talk about what we do for a living. That dialogue is contagious. It is like a virus, and it was for me. I hear it. When you hear it all the time, you fall into it. It becomes then your habit. I'm in the elevator the other day, and standing next to a lawyer who I won't name. I said, hey, how's it going? He said, 727 days. I may be wrong about the number of days, but he said, 727 days. I go, 700? What? What is 721 days? He said, that's the day when that's the number of days when my wife finishes her job and we retire. I'm going to retire. I'm going to quit. And I just thought, I'm happy for the guy, really, but wow. Can you imagine the drag that is on you? If every day is nothing more than one day closer to quitting. And when you hear that, of course, I was in an elevator with other lawyers. You hear that, and there's some giggling and all like that. You kind of sense that that's the thing to do. That's the way we talk in our courthouse. Any other thoughts? Any other ideas? Pity party's about to close. It's your last chance. Anything get you down?
Judges not following the law.
Judges not following the law. I'll say this. If a judge thinks they're following the law, I'm totally